that our Kupuna families can find the best resources in the midst of a life transition. We strive to make sure our seniors are informed and supported every step of the way. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Brandon Lau.
And I'm Andrew Leon,
your host for the KupunaWiki radio show.
Our title sponsor for today is Cheney Brooks Choice Advisors, providing you with the best real estate information so you can make the most informed decision. As they like to say, real estate is about choice. To contact them, call 753-9033.
And now we have our real estate tip of the week brought to you by Cheney Brooks Choice Advisors.
When marketing your property to sell, utilizing the internet can be one of your most efficient and cost-effective means for advertising. However, knowing how to effectively use the internet to benefit is very important. One method is to market your home to real estate agents who have sold in your building or neighborhood in the past. Once these agents have been selected, sending out an email flyer complete with photos can help you get the best exposure.
For more tips on how to best sell your property, call Cheney Brooks Choice Advisors at 753-9033. Well, again, today in the studio, we have the pleasure of speaking with LJ Duenas, Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Association. Welcome, LJ.
Aloha, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Well, the Alzheimer's Association does so much in Hawaii for Kupunas and the community. And maybe you can share with us a little bit about how you came into your role and what you do as the Executive Director.
Sure. Well, I joined the Alzheimer's Association a little over a year ago. I was formerly with the American Diabetes Association, where I was with for about 9 years. Our work at the Alzheimer's Association is really to support the 100,000 kupuna and their caregivers living with dementia, and we do that through the programs and services that we offer statewide. These programs include caregiver training, caregiver support groups, and other educational programs relevant to this population and how we could best support them with different techniques and tricks, especially with those who may be dealing with or faced with challenging behaviors, which is a symptom of dementia.
Right. So were you, if I can say, educated in the field, or were you raised on Oahu and then you came here to help our kupuna? How did you come about to help this organization?
So I was born and raised on a very small island, I believe we're smaller than Lanai, called Saipan.
Okay.
The capital of the Northern Mariana Islands. I moved to Oregon after high school, where I lived for 10 years.
So you went to school in Oregon?
I did. Never finished.
You had good intentions.
I had good intentions. Never finished college. It wasn't for me. I'm not saying that people shouldn't pursue higher education, but it was just not for me, not in my plan.
So were you involved in nonprofit work up there or community service?
Yeah, so I started as a volunteer for the American Diabetes Association in Oregon. My Hanai brother has type 1 diabetes, so care where I'm from, is minimal, especially with type 1, where specialized care is needed. He's doing well today, has 2 beautiful boys, and so ADA really helped in terms of, providing resources and treatment options as he went through his journey living with type 1 diabetes at a young age. As I mentioned, I was a volunteer there. When I moved here, I saw an opportunity within the organization and applied and moved my way up through the chain of command with the ADA here locally, and had a pleasure of meeting colleagues who have since moved over to Alzheimer's Association. I heard of an opportunity if they reached out to see if I was interested. I also have a very close connection to dementia, so it was another cause that I thought I could champion. I've done all that I could with the ADA and took them to that next level. Handed over that shiny golden baton,
right,
and came over to the Alzheimer's Association to see what difference I can make.
So what about the Alzheimer's Association is special to you?
What's extremely special was knowing and actually seeing our programs and services being delivered statewide. We're very mission focused. It's mission first always. The money is second. We have to, of course, raise money to support what we do, but we're everywhere. We have staff and volunteers on all islands, including Molokai and Lanai. and just seeing the impact that we have, you know, is pretty remarkable, and proud to see that even amid this crisis, we continue to deliver on our mission.
Right.
I think that was, you know, one key factor as I hear and I did my research on the organization to see if this would be a move I would be happy with. You know, there was no question, no doubt.
Right. Well, you mentioned, you know, there are over 100,000 of those in this vulnerable population that you're servicing, plus their family members, right? So, you know, there's a lot of people who can be impacted and served. What are some of the key areas of service that you provide to people with Alzheimer's?
So one I would say program I think that really makes an impact in family caregivers is our individualized care consultations, where families can speak with master level clinicians or specialists who have had experience with dealing with dementia, and just share with this individual the challenges that they're faced with, and having the other person on the other end share kind of the tips and tricks, because there's certainly ways that you can you know, pacify situations that perhaps are challenging, and also what they can expect in the future and how could they kind of mitigate some of the foreseeable challenges that that person with dementia may face. You know, you want to make sure that you put yourself in their reality,
Right.
you know, because that's where they are. You know, you have to live in that moment, and you have to recognize that it may not be that person that you knew a few years ago. It's the disease has slowly taken over.
Yeah. And that's the challenging part, is how do you relate, right? And still have that compassion, but just knowing that there's so many things in your world, like if you're a caregiver, and you have to take care of, you have to manage on the other person's behalf, but yet you have to also remember to connect with them as an individual, right? And I think that's what a lot of your support groups are about, right? Is helping those families and caregivers. Maybe you can share a little bit about that. You know, how do those groups really help to support the families?
So with the support groups, you know, we have staff or volunteers facilitate, but it's really the participants who provide the peer-to-peer support. You know, they would share ideas. They would get together outside of the support group. I mean, that's really the intent of these support groups, is to provide these network of support. Unfortunately, at this time, you can't do it in person, but you know, they share phone numbers, they text, they maybe set up Zoom meetings, because you know, everyone is different. They handle different situations differently, but there are also very similar. There's similar situations that, you know, this lady perhaps, you know, in Neo Valley, who has had to go through with her husband with dementia, that this family in Aiea is now dealing with, and how did they deal with that, right? You don't need a clinician to tell you how to handle that situation. You're going to get the support from someone who had to go through it in real life.
So does your organization equip people within these groups to then share with others?
That's the
part of the strategy.
That's the whole intention of these support groups,
Right.
is the peer-to-peer support. And of course, having a volunteer, a trained volunteer, or one of our staff members facilitate. So if they do have questions, or if the conversation goes off in a tangent, you know, you can kind of bring it back.
Right.
We do encourage sharing of information, contact information, because that's as I mentioned, that's the whole intention of the support group, is the peer-to-peer support.
Just the strength of the network. So what are some other services that you folks provide aside from support groups? Maybe you can just list a few of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we offer a 24/7 helpline. So all hours of the day, if someone is faced with a challenging situation or just needs someone to speak with, to go over maybe a strategy, they can call our 24/7 helpline. That's 800-272-3900. We also offer caregiver training. So these are in-depth training on how to effectively communicate with those with dementia, or even just simple programs that go over what is Alzheimer's and dementia? What's the difference? A lot of people have that misunderstanding, right?
Right.
Dementia
Right.
is like cancer, and Alzheimer's is like breast cancer, to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this whole umbrella. So it's other educational programs that help equip caregivers and also help us raise awareness.
LJ, when we come back after this commercial break, I really want you to share a little bit more about that educational piece, because I think part of being able to connect, relate, and have compassion is having that understanding. And I think that's a place that we can all grow into. So right after this commercial break, we'll hear more from LJ Duenas, Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Association.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we have LJ Duenas. He's the Executive Director at the Alzheimer's Association. And first segment, great intro background of your story, how you got with the association. And you've done your time with the nonprofit organization. So you have a nice background of all of that. Now that you're coming into the Alzheimer's Association, you mentioned having these support groups, education. When a family member has either dementia or another type of this disease, it's oftentimes too late for them to find out, right? I mean, they've already found out. Perhaps they could have maybe prepared for it, right? I wanted to kind of touch upon what are some signs people can look out for to kind of at least prepare them, make them aware of what to look for, so they kind of know, hey, maybe we should get mom or dad, checked out and see if there's any concern there.
Sure. So first, I want to point out the audience to visit alz.org/10signs. That's the best website to visit. But some of the more common signs that people would kind of tend to pick up is repeating the same question once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, misplacing things and not able to trace back on maybe where you have placed it, or even just the thought of having to go through that process of tracing back, or perhaps driving to the grocery store and getting lost, and you've gone to this grocery store 1,000 times in your life. Like, those are some of the more apparent signs that someone may be affected by dementia. There's certainly normal aging, cognitive issues that people face, and there's also the not normal aging, and that's more so the not normal aging.
Yeah, so I think having these education pieces, right? Like, it would help family members to understand what to look out for, and what goes on with how to treat this, right? You mentioned the support groups. What are some other educational pieces these folks offer, as part of your service?
So, going back to the 10 signs, I think understanding Alzheimer's and dementia is pretty important program that we offer, so that those who may have any inkling of thought that their loved one, or if themselves have the disease, can seek treatment early and get a diagnosis if in fact they have Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. There's therapies or there's medication that we know will come down as it does, or as it has for cardiovascular disease or diabetes, where some of these therapeutics may be only effective if taken early. And unfortunately, those who have dementia are diagnosed so late in the stage already. And if we can get them earlier on, diagnosed, even just some slight of indication that they may have a cognitive impairment, these therapies may be more effective, and intervention done earlier than or sooner than later. So similar to, I'm going to use diabetes as an example. You have prediabetes, right? You're in this stage where you have that ability to bring your A1C down, or if you don't do, A, B, and C, you may get to that threshold where you do become a diabetic. And there's medication that help you stay within the prediabetes realm or get out of that. And I think it will it'll be similar with Alzheimer's disease, where we have that pre-clinical stage.
So, LJ, who do you find comes to you first seeking help? Is it usually the family member of the person who has the disease, or they suspect has the disease, or is it the doctor or the physician that makes a referral? How do they reach out to your organization usually?
We get the calls from the family caregivers.
Yeah.
There are instances where we get referrals from clinicians, but for the most part, it's family caregivers who, already know they have a diagnosis, or those who may, have some thoughts that they're.
And you folks, you take them through kind of like an interview process, just a survey, feel them out to see if there really is a cognitive impairment. Is that one of the services you provide, or no?
We don't do that assessment. That assessment has to be done by a clinician. But we do ask those questions, the 10 signs specifically, and we would refer them, or at least encourage them to seek out an appointment with their doctor. There are also dementias that could be reversed if intervention is done early.
Oh.
So that's also important.
You can share what those are.
Similar to if folks may get a concussion, there may be mass growth on the brain, or just pressure because of that growth that could be done, or that could be subdued with actually maybe surgery or laser, or maybe even a pill. And if too late, that does have an effect on cognition down the road. And if intervened early, you could take care of that. So there are certainly dementias that could be reversed.
See, that's interesting, because I think that'll give people the hope that maybe if they're more vigilant, that they could maybe catch it early, right? Not go beyond that threshold where it becomes permanent impairment. What other things do you folks teach about in your educational programs?
What's good for your heart is good for your head. We have the Alzheimer's Association is funding this study called the U.S. Pointer Study that looks at lifestyle intervention, similar to, again, cardiovascular disease and diabetes. It's living a balanced and healthy lifestyle, and reason being is that we also funded a study with in Finland, and we saw that there was significant, there's decreases in cognitive impairment for those who stuck with this particular diet, and this is the Finnish diet. They've modified it to be more heart healthy, and we know that we can replicate that here in the United States. What diet we're going to promote, I don't know yet. What are recommendations for physical activity? We don't know yet, but we know that eventually we'll have similar recommendations as the Heart Association has put out, or the Diabetes Association has put out.
So this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, where a lot of the research about the disease has come from your association, not just the physicians.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So eventually we can have you on the show. You're going to tell us, you're going to serve us a meal that'll help to decrease the risk of Alzheimer's and show us some exercises. That's wonderful. Now, how do you get these classes and educational pieces out into the public? What are the ways that you folks do that?
Well, right now, everything is done virtual or by phone.
Right.
We're fortunate that we do have a large database of those who have participated with us in the past. So, of course, we actually contacted every single one of them through our wellness co-outreach.
Wow.
So we touch base to see how they're doing. We're still here.
Now, you're not saying 100,000 people, right?
No. That wasn't 100,000. Maybe we should have had
Yeah.
100,000. But so we did that. We shared with them the change in terms of the program delivery. We work very closely with other community organizations, Catholic Charities, AARP, city and state agencies that focus on elderly affairs. So, we have a nice group of we have a network that would be able to also share our programs and services. Of course, social media works. It's been working for us, radio, and print ad, midweek, star advertiser.
So going back to our present pandemic situation, sounds like video conferencing has been something you've adapted to quite well as an organization.
Yes. We, really proud of my team. We quickly, were able to make the switch to offering our programs and services virtual or by phone. We've also done training for those who may have, may be hesitant to, use Zoom or whatever other online platform that we use, or even calling in. So, and we continue to do that. We've also seen an increase, a 20% increase in participation.
Mm-hmm.
Adult daycares are closed. Professional caregiving services are kind of been on a pause.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of these family caregivers have now become full-time professional caregivers, so they need the support, and we're here to help.
That's great. You can be there in their living rooms.
Yes, exactly. No. Well, LJ, I wanted to ask you. You guys are a nonprofit, and so you folks depend on fundraising, right? Throughout the year to continue offering these services. How has this pandemic affected you folks in your fundraising efforts? And do you folks still have anything planned? Maybe for the second half of the year, depending on things ease off. How are ways that our listeners can still support you folks during this time?
Sure. So we have two signature fundraising campaigns. One is called The Longest Day, which is our do-it-yourself fundraiser. So folks can decide how they want to raise funds for us. They can do a 100-mile bike ride. They can maybe do a cooking show on Zoom or Facebook Live and raise funds that way. Kalanepea did a live concert for us, and we raised, well over $1,000 or maybe $2,000 for us. It's called The Longest Day because June 20th is the summer solstice. So it's the longest day. Now, we don't, people can select that date to do the fundraiser, or they can select any other date before September. It's a 9-month campaign. I biked 100 miles on one day for the longest day, so it was surely the longest day I had on a bike. We have another fundraiser who's riding 1,000 miles before the longest day.
Wow.
And other types of fundraisers.
How many times around the island is that?
Well, she's doing it, I think through June 20th, so she's doing
Okay, she's breaking.
Yeah, breaking it up.
Because I donate. Well, even if it wasn't in one fell swoop, I still donate.
What an amazing, feat, right? I mean, even at 100 miles in one day for me, the next day I was out.
That was your longest nap.
That was my longest nap. In fact, we did 109 miles. It took us 109 miles. So we did, around the koala.
Right.
So people can register or donate at alz.org/TLD. TLD is the longest day. Or one of our walks. We have 4 walks statewide. One here on Oahu, November 7th. We also have a walk in Hawaii Island, Kauai, and Maui. And they can visit us at alz.org/walk.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to either volunteer or maybe they need help themselves, they just go to alz.org, is it? And then is there a phone number they can call?
Yep, our direct number here is 808-591-2771. If they need to reach someone, after business hours, they can always call 800-272-3900, which is our 24/7 helpline.
That's great. Well, thanks so much. We've been talking with LJ Duenas, Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Association. Thanks so much for being on our show.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we have our KupunaWiki Classic Trivia.